Hello and welcome back to the Healthcare Uncomplicated YouTube channel. Today, I can say that I'm extremely excited. We have a very special episode, which is the 3rd anniversary of the channel, and I have a stellar panel of experts for you. But before I go ahead, let me remind you to subscribe to the channel. Also, let me acknowledge and give a special mention to our partners, our industry partner, Fin Partners, and our technology partner, Andersen. And without further ado, let me introduce the special episode Deep Minds. And I'm going to go straight to our experts for a very short introduction. Alena, go ahead first, please.
Sure. So happy New Year. And first of all, congratulations to João on the 3rd anniversary of your YouTube channel on health innovation and digital health. I'm really thrilled and excited to be here with you with Gil, Ricardo. I'm Alena Burdzialouskaya, head of partnerships at Andersen, which is a global IT service provider that in 16 years has delivered innovative, incredible software solutions for life sciences companies, healthcare professionals, and software solutions, and patients, sorry. If you'd like, you can see more details on our LinkedIn page, which is Andersen Healthcare, and check out our website. Thank you.
Thank you, Alena. Gil, would you like to go next?
First of all, I join with Alena in congratulating you, João. It's really quite an accomplishment what you've done during the past 3 years. The outstanding guests that you've had. I'm privileged actually to be back for this 3rd anniversary. I remember when you launched the channel, and you've had some incredible guests, and I'm joined by 2 of those incredible guests today. So I thank you for that. As you know, I'm chair of Global Health and Purpose at Fin Partners, Fin being one of the largest communication organizations in the world. In my role, it's a privilege actually to work with 1,400 people in 4 continents who really are seeking to improve the health and well-being, the ability of people around the world to access health, to access clean air, clean water, be able to depend on a sustainable planet to sustain their health. So it's a privilege to be with you and our other guests.
Thank you, Gil. Ricardo, last but not least.
Well, thank you, João. It's a real pleasure to be here. Congratulations once again on your 3rd anniversary here. As a fellow Portuguese citizen, it's very proud. We're very proud to see you also striving beyond borders, also taking the Portuguese good name in the technological frontiers. And it's a real pleasure to be here also with Alena and Gil, and an honor to be in this YouTube channel. So my name is Ricardo Batista Leite. I'm the CEO at Health AI, the global agency for responsible AI in health, a nonprofit foundation based in Geneva. As a background, I'm a physician trained in infectious diseases. I was also a 4-term member of parliament in the Portuguese National Parliament, having been a deputy mayor also in my hometown of Cascais in Portugal. And I'm also the founder and president of the Unite Parliamentarians Network for Global Health, which is a network of current and former members of parliaments, congresses, and senates from more than 110 countries pushing for science-based policy making across the globe, having stepped down as a member of parliament myself last May to take on this new role as CEO at Health AI.
Ricardo, thank you so much. And let me wish you all a happy new year 2024. I wish you personally all the best. Thank you so much for being in here. And we're going to make a start, Deep Minds, Demystifying AI. And what I would start with is, do you really think AI poses a threat to people and humanity? And Gil, I would start with you, please.
Well, that's the probing question that keeps people up at night. Let me say that I think that whenever we've had a technological evolution, people have felt threatened. Certainly for people who drive on highways, they remember having to stop to pay a toll. Toll takers have been replaced, obviously, by electronic recording machines that grab our license plate or reduct. So whenever we have technology again, whether it's the powered carriage replacing the blacksmith, there's a fear of what will happen with us. I think AI plays to the cognitively swift and solid. The concept of machine or technology replacing humanity, that's a myth. I think that what AI does, Gen AI or AI, it aggregates and it sorts information. But who is the mentor of the algorithm? Who has their hands on the wheel of that algorithm? Humanity. Humanity will win, and I think will always drive AI. Now, obviously, Ricardo and his colleagues are making sure probably that happens, but we have to really recognize that it's up to us to direct the technology, not for the technology to direct us.
Thank you, Gil. Ricardo, right back to you.
Yeah, I tend to agree with what Gil has just mentioned, and what we are seeing across the globe is there's a lot of uncertainty, especially from those that have high responsibility in the regulatory space and the policy space, which is a lot derived from lack of knowledge around the technology and its potential impact. We see a lot of technologists raising fear around the issue. At Health AI, we conducted an extensive survey to governmental officials, to legislators, to civil society movements. And the word fear was the word that came up most related to artificial intelligence. And we relate that to the lack of knowledge about the technology, the potential harm in the field of health, where we are mainly focused on. But also, it is something that, having been a 4-term member of parliament, technology is something that people are sometimes scared of because they don't know how to deal with it. And in the past, what we have seen is laws and policies have tended to be very late into the game. They're very slow to react. And now AI is taking this to a whole new level, where the accelerated pace of development, with the billions being invested in research and development, makes it impossible for legislation to keep up the pace. And so what I would say is that in this case, if the world wants to embrace the potential that this technology can bring to making lives better, what we need to embrace is that we need lighter legislation, but we need effective regulation, and regulation that is done in a way that can keep up to pace to the technologies. And I'll give you just one example, João. When we saw the European Union trying to come up with the EU Act, which just was approved this week, and now will go through a process that will take 2 years, the European Union authorities had put large language models as low risk until ChatGPT came out. And then all of a sudden, people got around the table and said, oh, maybe this is high risk. And so they changed it to high risk. And nobody knows what's going to be the next big thing that will actually be generated or derived from machine learning. And so this is not a way to approach the regulation of this very potent technology that has the huge potential to make our lives better, but it does have potential for harm if we do not have a way to embrace it and to make sure that we harness that potential. And so that's what I believe we all have to do together. And of course, at Health AI, as a nonprofit foundation, that's what we're also trying to do in collaboration with the World Health Organization.
Brilliant. Thank you, Ricardo. And Alena, your point of view, please.
Well, I think that there are some threats, and the most treated ones come from the ability of AI to rapidly clean, organize, and analyze massive data sets consisting of personal data, including images collected with increasingly ubiquitous presence of cameras, and to develop personalized and targeted marketing and information campaigns, as well as greatly expanded systems of surveillance. This ability of AI can be put to good use, like both Mike Holt mentioned, improving our access to information or countering acts of terrorism. But at the same time, it can be misused with grave consequences while used for the influence on mass decision making. And the threat of the connection of AGI, artificial general intelligence, to the internet and the real world, including the vehicles, robots, weapons, and all the digital systems that increasingly run our societies, could well represent the biggest event in human history, that so-called Terminator scenario. But in the latest reports that I came along, I read that General Motors, for example, self-driving division Cruise, has confirmed that it's withdrawing all its vehicles off public roads in the United States and it's an expanding safety investigation. And that creates doubts about whether this scenario could be real.
Thank you so much. Well, it's certainly a lot there for us to think about. Actually, next item, keeping with the theme of human concerns, in what ways AI technologies be designed and implemented to prioritize human well-being, address biases, and ensure transparency, fostering trust in AI systems and the individuals they are interacting with? Ricardo, I'll start with you this time.
Well, that's a that's a big question, João. That has we can break it down, I would say, into many components. But to try to keep it as simple as possible, when we look at the field of regulation in this field, I think it's very important, first of all, that we all have a common understanding of what responsible AI is. You know, there are a lot of principles that we've been talking about around fairness, accountability, inclusivity. But then how do you actually translate that into concrete action? And right now, we don't have a common thread of understanding. A lot of companies are coming up with their own kind of standardized approaches internally. That's where in the field of health, I believe that the World Health Organization and others coming up with a common thread and a minimum bar of standards can actually be very useful, because what we're hearing from a lot of companies is that we want to comply with responsible AI standard. We just don't know what is expected from the regulators. And so if we have an understanding, breaking it down in terms of what is expected at the data set level, at the training model level, when we talk about optimization models, when we talk about the algorithms, but even beyond that, I mean, in low and middle income settings that we work in a lot, listening, how is data being collected and extracted from the countries in a way that actually protects citizens' interests, privacy, and the question of data sovereignty. How are we measuring the outcomes that and the impact that the technology is having in society? How do we detect early on potential risks associated to the technologies? How do we have an early warning system in place if something goes rogue, if there is a technology that has an unintended effect? That's what we're, by creating a global regulatory network, we're trying to address these issues, to have that in place. So basically, we see ourselves as the plumbers. If we do our job right, nobody will notice. If we don't, the toilets will overflow. And we're hoping to be able to be successful in our approach. But this is something that we believe goes way beyond our small mission, which is basically everyone really embracing these rules and approaches. And so what I would say is 2023 was the talk shop year. 2024 needs to be the action year. We need to go from a lot of the talk we're hearing around the world towards actually then how do we get it done? How do we actually embrace these technologies in a way that keeps citizens safe, but actually leads to the effective, positive impact that we know this technology can have in people's lives?
Brilliant, Ricardo. Thank you so much. Alena, over to you.
Well, I'll be really brief on that. I agree with a thought of Rick Blackman from his article in 2020. AI ethics does not come in a box. And that means that robust practices for transparency and reproducibility can help to build trust in AI systems, as well as trend towards the democratization of AI.
Brilliant. Thank you. Gil?
Look, I think both Ricardo and Alena touch on important points, but I want to drill down to the practical nature. When we talk about AI or Gen AI or ChatGPT or chatbot, all these technologies that have really been thrown into the mix right now, it's important that we get very, very practical. We use these terms broadly. And the reality is that there are certain very specific needs where we need to deploy these technologies sooner rather than later in order to sustain and save lives. I just want to give a very classic example that some markets face, particularly the US market, which is the world's largest health market, but it's the world's most fragmented health market at the same time. Unlike, let's say, the NHS system in the United Kingdom, or other health systems that are state organized. So it's very natural for Portugal or the United Kingdom or Germany to take a look at this from a policy standpoint, because health is provided actually as a government sponsored or directed benefit. In the United States, you have a highly or hyper fragmented system. You have electronic medical records that are almost unintelligible. And if you move from plan to plan or hospital to hospital, there's no way that the systems actually communicate with each other. What I think each of us care about is where the patient fits into the technology and in terms of health. And actually, when we deploy this technology correctly, both from an operational standpoint and from a policy standpoint, we're going to save lives. That has to be the focus, first and foremost. How do we use these technologies to actually help sustain and save people's lives? Great example of that, EMRs, electronic medical records. People think they read like books. They do not. They're fragmented pieces of information that health professionals need to really sort through. Gen AI and scraping information technologies will enable health professionals to actually attune or direct the technology toward gleaning information that doctors can grasp and deploy very quickly. So, like Ricardo said, this is about operationalizing the technology and using policy, I believe, as bumper guards for society to protect society from the misuse of technology. But in between those thin bumper guards, that's the alley, right? That's the lane. That's vast. We need to move quickly and smartly in order to make AI actually part of the medical regimen.
Thank you, Gil. There's certainly a lot there to digest and, of course, explore and go deeper. But anyway, moving on to the regulatory landscape, how are current regulatory frameworks addressing the ethical and legal implications of artificial intelligence, and what changes or additions might be necessary to ensure responsible AI development and deployment? And Gil, I go right back to you, please.
Yeah. So, to me, policy exists for two reasons. One, proactively to protect society, or in response to society's outcries of misuse or fear of abuse. And I think that this is where Ricardo, both as a physician and as a public policy leader, really is very skilled and the right person at the right time to be CEO of Health AI and to work with organizations like the WHO. It's very, very appropriate because you have someone who is comfortable wearing the multiple hats. And I think often when we deploy to policymakers, what we do is we lose the application aspect of this. Yes, policy has to take a leading preemptive role. But my fear is without people like Ricardo being in the driver's seat of these global conversations, is that actually what's going to happen is fear, ambiguity, restrictions will actually pull back on the stick of progress instead of moving us forward smartly. So I would say we would be best gauged to first and foremost understand some of the challenges and problems that Gen AI, ChatGPT will help us resolve. I think we have to first and foremost look at the broken system that we've inherited and how do we use the technology to heal the system itself. That's job number one. Job number two is to understand what clinical problems we need to really get on top of and understand whether it's infectious disease around the world, whether it's looking at diagnostics, whether it's looking at people's risks for serious diseases like cancers. Gen AI can play a very important preemptive role. To what end? So I actually have great faith in the policy system. I think that there's a reason why people like Ricardo are being mobilized in these leadership roles. I think we need more voice from patient advocacy. We need to hear from the health professional. I think we need to first and foremost understand some of the complex public health challenges that we face every day and recognize that the next sort of pandemic is just around the corner. Piecing together vast amounts of clinical and operational information and reading the tea leaves is what Gen AI is very good at. It is a powerful predictive tool that can both engage early and prevent death. But we shouldn't be frightened of it. We should empower the right people to sort of map out the territory we want to discuss on a policy level.
Gil, thank you so much. Ricardo, I'll go straight back to you. And what you said, Gil, is actually very apt. Not many people like Ricardo has got the deep expertise on both ends, from the clinician.
We have to clone him. We have to
Yeah.
clone Joe. We have to.
Yeah, we need some
Gen AI
digital.
can help with that.
Digital
By the way,
things.
this isn't actually. This is Ricardo's digital twin who's
Yeah.
joining us today.
We
Other
need
Ricardo is actually in a policy meeting.
we need Ricardo. Go ahead, please.
Well, with the advancements of synthetic biology, I'm very fearful of your conversation right now that can actually be done, which I don't know if it would be necessarily a good thing, though. Well, thank you for the kind words, Jill and João. But honestly, I see a lot of thoughtful people in this space, and more are coming in. And with the rise of AI from a research field to really mass commercialization, we're seeing a lot of interest being generated, which is a good thing. But we also need to make sure that everyone is moving in the right direction. Unlike previous technological and digital waves, we've actually seen, I would say, the private sector being more conscious of its responsibilities on the ethical front than in the past. And there are many reasons for that. We won't get into that here today. But I think that's a positive thing that even governments should embrace. The governments should actually bring those that understand the technology to the table. Once and for all, we have to make sure that ideological boundaries don't hold back governments from actually listening to the private sector, listening to the different stakeholders in society. I couldn't agree more with Jill when he mentioned patient advocates, those that are at the end of the day going to benefit or suffer the consequences of the bad use of technology at the end of the day. And so we need to make sure that everyone is heard, is participating in the process, and has an active voice. And those mechanisms in most places are not in place. In rich countries around the world, we're starting to see that, but in the majority of countries, and if you go to low and middle income countries in Latin America, Sub-Saharan Africa, Asia Pacific, you go to a regulator, they don't even have one person who has any form of training in artificial intelligence. And so how do you actually want to make sure that the technology that most of us are saying can actually help the most marginalized populations of the world benefit and move forward towards better health? Actually, if we do not fix this underlying foundational problem of capacity from the regulators, this will actually widen the digital divide instead of narrowing it. And that's what we need to do together. That's what we are advocating for and trying to build this global regulatory network, particularly in low and middle income countries, to see if we can, in a way, not be a Geneva-based organization trying to do something for those countries, but actually giving them the capacity to be able to lead their own destiny. When it comes to how do they manage and validate technology, how do they collect the data, how do they use structured and labeled data towards better policy making for global health and public health and community health. And so there are tremendous opportunities out there as well. But we need our political leaders to go from, the UK Security Summit and the US President's executive order to on-the-ground action of how do we actually transform these very well-intentioned principles around responsible AI, so actually getting the job done. And that's what I'm hoping 2024 will bring us.
Thank you so much, Ricardo. And Alena, your point of view, please.
Yes, thank you, Ricardo, for working in the regulatory part. Since as a software development company, we do face a lot of questions and opportunities in terms of AI. And of course, as software developers, we assume that all changes and additions in the development of AI systems should be subject to preliminary consideration in the market in terms of performance. That's the improvement of analytical or clinical characteristics of particular algorithms, input information used by, let's say, new types of input signals, and methods of application. For example, diagnostic assistance was replaced by providing a final diagnosis. These changes cannot be mutually exclusive, and one change may affect the other. And manufacturers of such AI systems need to provide a plan for algorithm changes at the initial stage. And the pre-sale verification of such software included the possibility to assess the risks associated with these changes.
Alena, thank you so much. And now moving on and focusing on industry potential and challenges. What specific industries are posed to benefit the most from advancements in AI, and what challenges must be overcome to maximize the potential of artificial intelligence in areas such as healthcare, finance, and manufacturing? And Ricardo, this time I start with you.
Well, in terms of industries, when you look around the economic spectrum, I would say every area has a lot to benefit. If we look on the positive side of the technology we're talking about here. But actually, healthcare is very well poised, I would say, to be in the forefront because, back in 1950, 80 years ago, there was a global medical tragedy, which was related to thalidomide, a drug that was given to pregnant women as an anti-vomiting drug, due to the lack of regulation, led to more than 10,000 babies being born with birth defects. Many others died. And that led the world to understand that we needed to regulate the medical space, the medicine space. That led to the basis of what now is standardized regulation for medicines, and which led then to regulation of medical devices. And that's why we have so many robust agencies, from the FDA in the US to many others across the world. In the European Medicines Agency, we now see Africa next year going to create its African Medicines Agency, along with the national agencies around the world. This was extremely important to save lives, to make sure that these technologies were actually leading to safer approaches to the use of these technologies. Well, since we have this maturity of decades of regulatory experience within the healthcare space, if we can build on that for AI, in which we create a model through which AI technology companies can actually find a pathway through regulatory bodies to access healthcare markets, instead of having to knock door to door, as we're seeing now at hospitals and clinics, and actually finding ways through health technology assessment for pricing and reimbursement of these technologies, it can be a win-win system. On the one hand, the regulators and governments are keeping the technology safe. On the other hand, the companies are finally having a systematic pathway and clarity on the rules on how to access markets. And so I do hope that in healthcare, we can actually use the fact that we have more maturity than many other sectors in terms of the regulatory landscape to actually embrace this technology in a way that is much more responsible.
Ricardo, thank you so much. And we all in healthcare, and certainly health, AI is going to have a big impact. It's already starting to have, but anyway, Alena, over to you next.
I agree that healthcare is benefiting from the advancement of AI most. Frankly speaking, there are so many choices in current situation in healthcare. Jill mentions the fragmented market in the USA. And since we work mostly with the US market now, we also see several problems, like reduced volumes, especially in inpatient services, skyrocketing labor and supply costs driven by high inflation, tightening reimbursement from commercial and governmental payers that isn't keeping up with rising expenses to provide care, difficulty receiving timely payment from various insurance providers, and healthcare staff shortage and burnout. All these circumstances highlight the AI importance as potential remedy to these issues.
Thank you, Alena. And Gil, over to you.
Yeah, this is, first of all, the million-dollar question, or the billion-dollar question, that I think all industries are asking themselves right now. I think that the top-line answer, and then I'm going to drill down in some specifics, the top-line answer is, who will not benefit from the application of AI? That's the big issue. The investment community, most certainly, consumer marketing community, most certainly, the tourism community, most certainly, and obviously our passion, our collective passion, as Ricardo and Alena just sort of focused in on, which is the health sector. I just want to put out there before I sort of drill down on the applications or the benefits, an inherent challenge. I don't think Ricardo will disagree with me. When people go to medical school, whether it's a 4-year program or a 5-year program, they don't even get a semester of education around health technology or health information. And yet information is the navigational guide for good care. So with that in mind, and the fact that our health providers, physicians, nurses, other allied health professionals received little preemptive or proactive training in the use of technology, I would say we're always going to be behind the 8 ball in trying to bring them up to speed, because technology will outpace their physical ability, not their intellectual ability, but their physical ability. So that's something that I think we all have to be mindful of and concerned of. But I want to drill down. I don't think we use this term healthcare or health, and I want to disagree. I don't think we have a healthcare system in the developed world or the emerging world. I think we have a sick care system. Our system engages best when people are ill. These technologies we're talking about, the true embracing what Ricardo, I hope, will be successful in doing, setting out the pathway for appropriate use. What I hope certainly that Alena is going to do as the mentor of the tool. The software developers are really the navigational guides of the algorithm. What I hope we will do is perfect these technologies so that they can actually shift a sick care system to a healthcare system. Now, in terms of practical application within the health sector, we talk about the use of medicine, and certainly Ricardo talked about the devastating use of pre-technology when we used sort of like clinical trials and we applied a drug that we thought would be good for pregnancy nausea. We applied and it had debilitating side effects on newborns, debilitating, horrific. And so part of what AI will do in clinical trials, in the world of decentralized clinical trials, is actually create predictive models. We'll be able to actually gauge and assess real world evidence from medicines once they're approved and used. We'll see patterns of risk and benefit we never imagined possible. We'll see benefits that have been serendipitous. We'll be able to spot them much earlier and apply to the benefit of the clinical community. In terms of drug discovery alone, we'll be able to look at the potentiality of molecules and see their potential to be applied to sustain and save human life. And in the design of clinical trials, we'll be able to include or exclude certain patient types so that people who might benefit will benefit and people who will be at risk won't be. All of that is about amassing intelligence and deploying that intelligence. This is nothing more, and Ricardo may disagree on this theory. I think a great health professional teamed with AI, or even a good health professional teamed with good AI will suddenly be a health professional constantly on grand rounds, getting the best knowledge from thousands and thousands of other clinicians who will be invisibly by the bedside. And that's only if we have the patience and commitment, as João, you've brought together in this call. You've brought together people from the health policy side, the development side, the communication side. If people like us that you constantly bring together in your program come together collaboratively, AI will be for the good. Otherwise, hit miss.
Can I jump in as well?
Sure, Ricardo,
Sorry to
go ahead.
because Jill challenged me there on that last point, and but I want to say I fully agree. And what I believe mainly in the science and the evidence and the data is showing us, many times when we're talking about AI, we're saying, oh, look at how the health outcomes are much better when you use AI than when humans. But actually, sometimes we underplay the other aspect, which is when you bring together AI plus humans, normally the outcomes are better
Totally
than
agree.
any of the other.
Agreed.
And so what I think this is telling the world is that the future is going to be synergy. It's going to be hybrid. It's going to be this mix between our capacity to bring humans and machines working together. And I fully agree with Gil. We have not prepared the future generations of healthcare professionals to even embrace that technology. We're still teaching doctors to be machines. And if we teach doctors to be machines, the machines are going to win at the end. And that is what we have to embrace. We have to use the fact that we are humans. We have advantages by being humans, and using that in that new synergetic approach in the future, which I don't think right now on the training front, especially in pre-grad era, we're seeing that happening in medical schools and nursing schools around the world.
Ricardo, thank you so much. Well, this is certainly a very exciting and challenging conversation. Moving on to the latter part of the episode, the new kid on the block, generative AI. Do you believe that we are moving from hype to hope? And this time, Alena, I'll start with you.
Well, we mentioned that a couple of times during our conversation, and we had several talks with the team, and we all probably know that Gen AI is already being implemented in a number of major EHR systems, including Epic and Oracle Health. And these companies render Gen AI as a source of major hope. It's also described by famous physician Eric Topol for the liberation of medical professionals from keyboard and giving them a gift of time for patients. Regarding the control with the Gen AI, it seems to me that this threat is a little bit exaggerated, since now world does not have enough power to invest more in building the AI infrastructure and breakthroughs. The venture investing is going down in many parts of the world. World itself becoming more and more fragmented, but the global rise of the machine requires global presence. But the threat itself is real, and reasonable competitiveness, like, for example, between Google and Microsoft, can help in this regard, as well as democratic AI approach, extensive and multifaceted investments in AI development, including crowdfunding, and including in AI development, not only giants as big tech companies, but also medium-sized companies like Andersen.
Brilliant. Alena, thank you so much. Ricardo, can we have your thoughts on it, please?
Well, I think that this is a reality that has already been being used, is already being used in health settings around the world. 20 years ago, when I was in the emergency room, I was using Google search, and that wasn't validated by anyone or regulated. And ChatGPT 4 is already being used in emergency rooms around the world, and every health board administrator will deny that is the reality, but that is the reality, because nobody can control what people are doing on their smartphones. And so we need to embrace that there are parts of the technology that will always be beyond regulation, which is not a bad thing. What is I think detrimental is that we need to make sure that the power that is given to people through this technology is in their phones, that they have the capacity to understand the risks. We talk about as hallucinations, but hallucinations can, if not embraced as such in the healthcare setting, can actually lead to lost lives or to detrimental impact on people's lives. It's understanding that the machine can get it wrong. And so who uses that technology is prepared to do a true assessment of that technology, well, then it can be useful. But that's where I think a lot of the risks lay, João, because no regulation is going to be able to save us from bad human behavior. And human behavior can only be improved through training, through education. And as we were talking in the previous segment, we are not preparing those that are on the front line to actually use this technology in a way that is responsible, to understand its limitations. Just the other day in a different field, I was talking with programmers that told me, at the beginning, I used to do programming using Gen AI, and I would review the code lines. Now I don't even care. If there's a bug, I'll fix it down the road. The problem is a bug in healthcare can actually lead to very detrimental consequences for the patient. We cannot have that kind of risky approach to the way we use technology in the field of health as we possibly do in other fields. And building up on what Gil was saying, the tremendous potential of population of health, of actually transforming the disease-driven model in health towards one that is focused on quality of life and well-being can actually be accelerated with these technologies, including Gen AI. But once again, we need those in different levels of power, from the frontline healthcare worker to the management to the policymakers. We need all of those different levels of power to really understand how to use that technology in the benefit of the system and at the benefit of the citizen. That is an area where we still have a long way to go. And so shows like yours, João, are so important so that we can raise these issues, I hope, and lead to more impactful policy decisions and educational curriculum that can lead to better health outcomes down the road.
Thank you, Ricardo. And Gil, can we have your insights, please?
Humanity is driven by the thin edge of hypothesis seen as fact. And our biases about other people, our biases about nations and economics and so forth, become actions. Gen AI is really just a reflection of humanity. It's a fainter reflection of humanity, but Gen AI is able to act on its own assessment of information because the people who created in the first place, the intelligence is our intelligence given over to the machine. We're chock filled with biases. We're chock filled with problems. And Gen AI is really just a mirror image to that sense of thinking. So it's flawed from the very beginning because humanity is flawed, and that's good. That's good. Where Gen AI is going to really have to be monitored, we have to consider this, is the fact that humanity has something that I don't think is easily programmed: empathy. Gen AI is about assessing information en masse quickly, expertly, but it leaves out an essential part of the decision-making process: feelings for the other person, feelings for people in general. So I think Gen AI is a magnificent tool. Any tool has to be used in the hands of a skilled plumber, carpenter, electrician, physician. And so I think that, one, we have to recognize Gen AI's limitations and its strengths. That's one. Two, I think we have to understand the fact that generative intelligence is not artificial. There is no such thing as artificial intelligence. I wish that people would get rid of that term. It's augmented intelligence. It's essentially aggregated intelligence put into one location for assessment. And I think the reason why patients, people with health problems, like connecting to ChatGPT or chatbot or using AI is often they feel uninhibited to ask and ask and ask. And guess what? The machine doesn't shut them down after 6 minutes or 8 minutes or 15 minutes and sort of like pick up their stethoscope and say, I've got to go. You can stay there and keep on asking your AI physician a gazillion and one questions, not knowing whether they're right or wrong, but not feeling judged. So I really think this always comes down to who has their hands on the wheel. And I think this is a humongous opportunity for the health professional community to recognize it must hold on to the wheel. It must not surrender its insight, its authoritative voice, its guidance, or its feelings to the machine. If we do that, I'm with Ricardo, machine wins. If we remember that humanity must win at the end of the day because humanity is here to heal humanity, then it will be an amazing tool.
Gil, thank you so much. And guys, this has been amazing. Before moving on to last remarks, we have one last item, but of course, I agree with you with these amazing insights. And Ricardo mentioned before in his own words that we need to come together to really expose the challenges, the issues, give different perspectives, And that's how we move the ball forward and actually do good innovation and good thinking, because the thinking comes from the human being. Unfortunately, the thinking doesn't come from the machine. So we are on the right track, I think. Moving on to the last item for us to talk about, as AI technologies continue to evolve, what considerations and safeguards should be in place to manage the deployment of increasingly powerful generative artificial intelligence, ensuring it aligns with human values and it doesn't pose risks to society? And Alina, I'll go back to start with you, please.
Well, actually, I think that I already covered some points for that, and like we all discussed, I think that Ricardo actually can spread more on this, but we should well, give me a second just to think over what else can I add to something that I already mentioned. If you don't mind, can we go to Ricardo
Yes,
or to
Alina,
Gil, because
no,
just
don't
need to
worry.
think over.
Don't worry.
Okay.
We got to Ricardo. Ricardo, right back to you.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Well, since we're near Christmas season, I may recommend a couple books here to answer your question. And I have no vested interest in the sales of these two books I'm going to recommend. I just found them very interesting reads in this field. One is called Power and Progress, and this is a pretty dense book, but it looks into how technology has been embraced over the last 1,000 years, so over the last millennia. And a common thread was identified by the authors. First of all, technologists typically over those 1,000 years always said when a new technology came to the market that this technology would make lives better for everyone. In reality, the data has shown that very rarely did it lead to more wealth or well-being for everyone. It typically led to more wealth and well-being for the very few. The very few times in which that was not the case, in which technology actually had a tremendous impactful societal outreach across all of society, was when the technology from the start was designed in a way that was inclusive, that incorporated many prospects and many elements that we now call responsible AI, such as accountability, fairness, transparency, respecting privacy, and inclusiveness. And so learning from lessons past, I think we need to look into the future, especially with the rise of machine learning in healthcare. Really, this is really the year zero of commercialization. We should, from the start, try to embrace these lessons and try to make sure that responsible AI is more than just something we say in our words, but is actually something we do in our actions. And the second book I would recommend is called Compassionomics. It's a book written by a medical doctor and an economist who were able to measure the impact of including compassion outcomes related to health outcomes in health systems. And what they were able to show is that actually including compassion and empathy as part of the healthcare system led to better health outcomes at the end for patients. So if we embed compassion and humanity, as Gil was mentioning, within the approach to technology, that humanity factor will actually lead to a society in which we can actually live healthier and happier lives, which at the end of the day, I think is what we all aim for. And so the data is there. We just need to act upon it.
Ricardo, thank you so much. Gil, go ahead, please.
These are, I think, as Alena was authentically grappling with the answer, because it's a tough question. It really is a tough question, and I think her response was spot on. It's not easy. It's not easy. And I think that Ricardo suggesting additional knowledge and perspective, I think also is right on. That I don't think we're going to solve this within our own heads. There's so much complexity here that worries me. And I'll just give one of those complexities we really haven't discussed, but I think Ricardo probably would feel it, which is I often hear when health systems begin to explore the application of these technologies, their immediate response is, oh, our doctors can see more patients in the course of a day. It's not, oh, our doctors can spend more time with each patient in the course of the day and actually get them to bond to our system and to the physician and understand what their needs are. We too often rush to the efficiency and the cost aspect of this as opposed to the outcome, which is keeping people healthy or returning them to health. So I think it's very important. I would say, Ricardo mentioned 2 books. I would say if you could only buy 2 books, you should buy what Ricardo recommended. If you buy 3 books, you could find my book on Amazon. But the truth is, I wrote that book 20 years ago. It's called Branding Health Services: Defining Yourself in the Marketplace. And occasionally I'll read the foreword, and it's so forward thinking that it was written 20 years ago for about 5 years from now. And but I think Ricardo is right. Get perspective. Get perspective. Lean into what Alena was saying. It's hard. There's no easy answers here. And I think we have to recognize that. But when I take a look at the setting that has to happen, I would say that one of the things Ricardo and Health AI and others from the World Health Organization, other groups like the Gallione Foundation, there's a group called HIT Lab, many different groups that are exploring these topics, I would say is, and maybe Ricardo can champion this for all of us around the world. We have to have one common goal, whether you're a payer, private or private or public payer, whether you are a product innovator across the product innovation cascade, whether you're a policymaker, whether you're a provider, regardless of your role in the provider system. I think that our biggest challenge is we have different goals. And that is the inherent problem when you embrace technology. Some people say, I'm going to use this to save money. Some people are going to say, I want to use this to be more efficient. And some people are going to say, I want to use this to save lives. And I think that actually all of our goals center around keeping people healthy, making them healthier, and using the very best of our wisdom, our skill, the technologies that we developed, that we deploy toward that goal. I think that if Alena and Ricardo and yourself, Joe, can be successful, it's to advocate for the fact that we must share a common goal to sustain and save humanity. And in doing so, I think we'll realize our other desires of economic and operational efficiencies.
Brilliant. Gil, thank you so much. We have to wind down. We could talk for hours, but we come to the end of the episode. And before I thank you for your magnificent participation, and I could feedback on many items, but Gil, of course, I do agree with you and Ricardo on his items about when we think about technology, we always think, how can we scale up, see more people, save more money, and sometimes we miss the point. So, but I'm gonna go back to Alena for the final remarks. One short final thought, Alena, over to you on this, on AI or on the items that we
Sure.
discussed. Anything whatsoever. Over to you.
Thank you, João, for bringing some brilliant speakers to making this call. I really learned a lot, and thank you for sharing your thoughts. And I have some work to do at my Christmas time and looking for these books to have a more clear vision of the prospects of AI. But summarizing the prospects for the development and application of AI in healthcare, I believe that the use of fully autonomous AI systems is an issue and will still be an issue. And to become a reality, we must have unconditional trust in the AI system and its capability to bring maximum benefits to patients in the first place.
Thank you, Alena. Ricardo, one final thought, please.
Well, let's focus on being humans and on the power of humanity. And if we do that, I think we can take the most out of everything that technology can be used. technology being used on bad policy just accelerates bad consequences. But if we use technology to empower humanity, to empower science-based, evidence-based policies, that can actually lead to tremendous impacts across the world and can lead us to move towards the sustainable development goals and all of these ambitious goals that we have set upon ourselves as nations, as humanity. And so, we talk a lot about the fear in this conversation, about the potential negative consequences. There's also a tremendous opportunity for us to actually have a tremendous impact that goes way beyond our current generation, but having impact today. And so I think very few things can motivate us so much to actually step up the game and do our best to get it right. And what I feel, Alena, Gil, you, João, and everyone who's in this ecosystem is really committed to doing that. And I'm very proud to be part of such a community. Thank you once again for the invitation.
Ricardo, thank you so much. Gil, one final thought. Over to you.
Boy, I so agree with what everybody has just said. I appreciate it immensely. A parachute only works if it opens. And that's the funny thing about technology, right? It's only beneficial if it's working for us. And I often feel, as Ricardo just said, that fear is very overpowering. It stops us from doing good things. And often what I find is if we were happy, happiness would stop us from doing things at all, would it? We would keep right on going. So I think that as leaders, and you've brought together two outstanding leaders, Alena and Ricardo, and I thank you for that. We have to remember that fear roots people in place. We cannot shut the door on this technology. That ship long sailed. So I would encourage people to recognize that fear is a real emotion. So is joy and happiness. They're real emotions. One inhibits us from doing things. The others encourage us to do more of that. And I think we should focus in on the joy and the potential of actually using the very best of the health system, both our ideas, our skills, our abilities, our information, actually to bring happiness and joy and health to people's lives. Do not let our inhibitions stop us from deploying this. But again, as has been discussed in this call, policy, and what Alena and Andersen are doing, good engineering of the algorithms and the technology itself, all of this is essential for us to be successful.
Gil, thank you so much. Well, it's time to go. I have to wrap up now. I want to thank you personally to each one of you. Alena, thank you so much for being in here. Ricardo, nice to see you. Gil, thank you so much for these amazing insights. I cannot thank you enough personally. We have to do this again next year anyway. We have to
Let's do it. 4th anniversary.
Anyway, it's so nice to see you. And
we'll book the day now.
Yeah, I have to think about the theme for next year. I don't want to let you go. I'm excited and also, but anyway, it's time to go. Thank you so much for being in here. And before I go and wrap up the program, I want to acknowledge our partners again, our industry partners, Fin partners. Gil, thank you. And Alena, the technology partners, Andersen. Ricardo, thank you so much for being in here. Also, make sure you subscribe to the channel. I'm going to post all the panel of experts LinkedIn profile in here in the body of the text. Make sure you communicate with them, ask them questions about AI or about anything else, and I'll see you all next time.